Hello everyone, we got a brand new trailer for Splatoon 3 with the first new season, the Chill Season, which has a bunch of new weapons, some brand new kits, maps, and more to go over. So today I'm going to break it all down, and be sure to subscribe to help me reach 100k before 2023. Let's go. On one side we see the Dapple Dooley's Nouveau, and then when the other team loads in, we're able to see the Luna Blaster, the Tenatech Splatter Shot, and the Zinc Mini Spotlight. Later in the trailer we see Forge Pro, and this is the first kit we can go over. It has Booyah Bomb returning from the Kensa, and right after throwing the Booyah Bomb, we can see them throw a Suction, something they had in its second kit. So it's basically a hybrid of the Forge and Kensa kits from Splatoon 2. I like this kit. Pro as a main weapon definitely needs some help, but this is something that can cover pretty much everything and is very versatile. Definitely something a jack-of-all-trades type weapon like Pro could use. Zinc Mini definitely has the most interesting new kit out of everything, with Big Bubbler and Toxic Mist, a throwback to the Zimmy from Splatoon 1 with Disruptor Bubbler. This is an iconic kit that was really good in that game, and in this game is going to definitely be amazing. Right now we have a lot of bubble weapons that can fight well but can't paint, and we have one that paints really well but can't fight. Mini being able to do both is super crucial. This weapon won't directly kill any of the other bubbler weapons, but it definitely fits a new niche we don't have right now, and for such an iconic returning kit, I think that's amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of this weapon as a support. Finally. As for the other three weapons, we only know their bomb at the moment. The Splatter Shot has Splat Bomb, and since it's a 10 attack, we could expect an Inkjet to return if it's similar to Splatoon 2, or maybe something like the Triple Ink Strike like the Wasabi Splatter Shot, but as of now, we don't know. This is of course a good combo. The Luna Blaster has a new look resembling the Kensa one, and well, pretty obvious why. It does in fact have Fizzy Bomb, the sub the Kensa Luna did at the end of Splatoon 2. I'm super happy they chose this, as next to Splat Bomb, this will be the next best sub for it, and depending on the special, this could be a really interesting second kit. And speaking of skipping their second kit, the Dapple Nouveau does as well, foregoing the Toxic Mist to get the returning sub of Torpedo from the third kit. Makes me wonder if the third kits of Splatoon 2 were kind of experiments for this game, but that's pretty interesting, and a bomb for a Dapple is really, really needed. Out of these three, Splatter Shot has the most potential, as almost every special would give it some kind of unique use, and while the other kits don't seem super meta-defining, they do seem like strong options that'll be really nice for those players to have. So now let's take a look into the brand new weapons, starting with this roller. It actually rolls faster and wider than other rollers besides Carbon, and it's probably still a one-hit. Having a wider paint trail while rolling is fine, but because you have to be literally on top of yourself to paint with it, I'm not sure how useful that'll be outside of niche situations. What I find more interesting is just how fast its vertical is. Look at that. That was really quick. This seems like a hybrid between the Carbon roller and normal roller in terms of its overall speed, and with the added paint from rolling, it's pretty interesting. The horizontal flick, while a bit slow, is actually kind of wide, more in between roller and dynamo. I guess to some degree it's sort of like an inverse Flingza roller, just not as extreme, which I think could be really strong. The sub-weapon line looks around 60 to 70%, so the likelihood of getting a bomb, which would be really good for it, is pretty high, and depending on the special, I could see this being a very interesting threat. Speaking of interesting middle ground weapons, we have the brand new shooter here, which a lot of people thought was Pro, which is funny, but this is actually kind of closer to Splatoon 1 Dual Squelcher than anything else. It's kind of in the middle in terms of Splatter Shot Pro and normal Splatter Shot's range, as you can see here, but its strafe speed and paint both seem better than Splatoon 1 Dual Squelcher. I don't know too much to say other than it seems like a very well-rounded weapon, and I like it quite a lot. We also know it's sub and special weapon. From this part in the trailer, we can tell it has Killer Whale, which should be pretty good for it and allow it to move pretty aggressively. But what about the sub weapon? Well, I figured that out with Twitch chat, and it's kinda interesting. There's a sensor right there, okay? So we're gonna try to use our logical deduction skills to figure out who threw this point sensor. Well, we know it's not the Forge, because the Forge threw the Suction, so we can rule out the Forge. New shooter pops up right here, and only after it pops up does that happen. If the new shooter was here, oh no. If the new shooter was here, and the sensor hit here, well, you can see how that arc would make a lot of sense, you know? With that in mind, let's go back for a second and let's find our new shooter friend. And sure enough, look at that sub-weapon line, and there it is. There's the sensor. So yeah, point sensor is not a death sentence, but not having a bomb is definitely going to rank it a little bit lower than it would have been with one. Still, I'm really curious to see how this thing goes, but the most interesting new weapon is this thing. This charger's main gimmick is one of the most extreme and crazy things I've ever seen, and it fixes one of the main problems with aggressive chargers, which is that you can't afford to miss a shot, because you have 5 of them! From what I can tell, the range, mobility, and charge time all seem similar to Swiffer, and the shots seem to kill in 2 hits, which is pretty solid, and you can see there how easily they can chase people. There's much more of a margin for error with this weapon, which means its potential as a really aggressive option, even at higher levels of play, is definitely there, more than any other charger. I do have 3 questions we don't know, which is, does it have a charge hold? If you partial, can you still get the 5 charges, in which I'm guessing no, and how much damage does it do? If it does 70, that's a combo number and very important. The special is Tacticooler, as you can see here, definitely pushing a more aggressive, supportive style of charger, and I hope the supplement also meshes well with that. It looks like around 60%, maybe 70, so it could have a bomb, or something really interesting would be like a splash wall that would give it even more room for error in terms of being able to miss a few shots. Honestly, this thing looks super fun. I can't wait to see what good charger players are able to do with it. In a press interview, we actually heard a bit more info I'll try to use to cap off this section, which is that there's going to be 10 returning weapons, which means we're going to get more modified sets. We've only seen 5 of them because the 3 new weapons are separate, so there's another 5. Probably one of them is going to be a stringer in Splatoon. We also know the new map name is called Brinewater Springs, or something like that. I probably butchered it. And we know there's going to be a new catalog, new titles, victory emotes, which we've seen already, by the way, if you want to check them out, and stickers. Alright, so we have to talk about the stages real quick to wrap up, and I'm gonna be honest with the new one, this is tiny, and it's also just this again. I swear to God, so many Splatoon 2 stages are like that. Like, this is also literally Mahi, and they even do this with Flounder, which I'll get to later. Realistically, there's not too many alternate routes. A lot of spots have uninkable walls, like this area by the tree there, and I don't know. It's visually fantastic, but the actual layout is continuing to be concerning, so that's not great. Flounder is a lot more interesting. With this picture, I want to briefly talk about 3 things. First of all, the right side route out of spawn is completely inaccessible now. They just took it out, so you can't really go around there, and that would make spawn camping a bit easier, though at least they have extended the spawn area backward and expanded the left side a bit, so there's still a decent bit of surface area to move around in, but it's an unnecessary and random downgrade to remove that route. We can also see on this right side, while there's someone climbing this wall, this whole pipe and wall is now completely uninkable. You can't climb this area either, so even that side near mid is inaccessible, meaning the whole right side of the area by your base and even in your trench is just not really something you can traverse on as easily. At least you can use this tiny little wall here, but it's an unfortunate and deeply unnecessary downgrade. Like, this wall could have totally been climbable too, come on. The good news is outside of that, I like what they've done with the stage. They have a bit more glass, so it's easier to see a few areas. This rail on tower control is one of the coolest rails I've ever seen, since it lets you jump straight over here. The sides and everything else about the map have been intact, and while it is smaller, it means you can climb these walls a lot easier, making the entrance routes faster and more accessible. The tower path has also been completely redone. The tower goes to the first checkpoint here, then we'll go down here to a second checkpoint, and then forward, which is much better than it dropping straight into this trench area like it did in Splatoon 1. This is definitely another museum case, where outside of randomly removed routes, everything else changed about the stage is better. So I think it'll end up still being a good stage, and I'm really looking forward to playing on it again. That's all I want to talk about, as Big Run and Salmon Run aren't really as much of my thing, though I am very excited for it, and honestly, let's let the Salmonids keep wahoo. Well, Splatoon 3 stuff was shown off in the Direct, and it was also some of the most confusing and fast and hype stuff imaginable, and so I'm gonna try to break down what little we can figure out, and speculate a little bit for things they might be hinting towards in the future. If you want to see more Splatoon content from me, I'm really close to 100,000 subscribers, so I would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. Let's get started. So before we even get to either of the wave sections, I want to talk about the possibility that we might actually be getting 4 waves. When the expansion pass was shown off, there were 4 colors being shown, and when they showed off the waves, you can see 4 wave banners. These banners also have the exact same colors, so potentially this is just the first 2 waves, and there are another 2 we don't even know about yet. Another thing we know is more music being used in the game. Specifically, we have the loading screen for Splatoon 1 that would play when you boot up the game for the first time and load into the plaza. We have, of course, Splat Attack, the original remix. and most importantly, we have a remix of a Splatfest song from Splatoon 1, being Color City. I have a small theory that when you're in the Splatoon 1 Plaza, if you group up for games in Splatfest or normally, you'll be able to hear the Splatoon 1 original music from there, which would make sense since it's being taken place in that area. That would be a really cool way of giving us more multiplayer songs without breaking some of the world lore of the music changing. As for the shops, we do see that there is a Salmon Run building, the arcade machine is there, though it's unclear if we'll have access to them, and the local multiplayer mode was transformed into the Shoal, which makes sense. There are some new shopkeepers and some shopkeepers getting upgrades. In fact, it's hard to tell over the music, but even the sound effects when selecting and buying gear are the exact same from Splatoon 1.
Splatsville, so shop wherever your vibes are.
But the main thing of note is in Sheldon's shop, where we can take a look at what seems like the normal Squiffer, but upon closer inspection, this is actually the new Squiffer. It has the sticker and a different color scheme, so maybe we're getting this in the next season. This is one of 3 weapons we have a decent likelihood of seeing. Skip to this timestamp if you don't want to hear about them. In the previous update, the files for the Gold Dynamo and Neo Splash-O-Matic were added to the game, and they look really cool. I love the Neo Splash look. So that's likely 3 of the weapons we'll be getting in the next update. There's a bit of returning gear from the shops, but one piece of gear that's especially interesting is the Koro Koro hoodie from Splatoon 1. If you don't know, this is based off an actual brand in Japan, and they even had a weapon in the Sheldon's picks for Splatoon 1. I find it pretty interesting that this is being brought back, and maybe we'll see another collab with Koro Koro in the future. Another thing we can speculate on is what stage might be coming back for a returning map. This was posted by Masa, which features some IDs for stages, and there's a few missing. We know Reef is somewhat in the game's code, but if we check here, there's an ID missing next to Splatoon 3 stages and for Splatoon 1. Considering the Inkopolis Plaza releases, I think it gives a higher probability that there'll be a Splatoon 1 stage coming alongside it with that update. So Bluefin, Salt Spray, and Urchin, the only Splatoon 1 maps to not have been ported to either game yet, are probably highly likely to come in the next update. Though of course it's speculation and that could all be wrong. The Splatoon 3 stage is probably the Ruin stage we saw in the original Splatoon Direct. Outside of that, that's really all we know. Obviously the shops give a new shop, which means there could be new clothes there, but even that isn't confirmed. There's Spike, who we can probably interact with, so maybe you can scrub with coins there, but it's really hard to tell. I'm hoping there's a little bit more to it, but I'm guessing there's definitely stuff we don't know, so we'll have to see if it makes it a little bit more worth the money. And while nice, no, the purchase bonus of 100% experience tickets, which are basically useless, cash, and 1 of every drink ticket does not count as a major bonus, so I do hope there's more content there. Alright, next is the story mode, and admittedly this is not my specialty, and on top of that, the trailer was super vague, so even with the things we can put together, it's impossible to put a connected theory. However, with some help of some people who helped me out during the analysis, I'd like to present some of the stuff we do know or is likely. First off, in our biggest piece of information, who is the Octoling in this trailer? Well, thanks to a post from Luna, who decided to do some color analysis things, it seems like the eye is the exact same color as Agent 8's. The hairstyle is the same, and the skin tone is the same on the color wheel. You can read up on the thread linked in the description if you want to hear a little bit more about it, because it's not really my speciality, but this is likely Agent 8, especially considering their outfit has a zipper, which is reminiscent of Off the Hook, you know, who they were with last. Another thing we can note is this is probably not before the end of Splatoon 2, because Pearl and Marina have their outfits from Damp Sock's Off the Hook when they went on tour, and you can see that in a few of the still images, which also means the Octoling cannot be Marina, which I have heard of it. Another thing we know is that the official wording is a stylish square transformed to white, which means it's probably the same square as Splatoon 2's and not a duplicate. For the plaza itself, it does have a theme of being plain. The shops are a little bit closer together and neater, and the tower has been replaced, featuring a little bit of an entrance that will probably be in the campaign. It also has fish flying around somehow, and it's snowing, which might resemble Alterna a little bit, but not much to go off of there. Oh, and the monorails are gone for some reason. Another thing worth noting that P-Jiggles pointed out is that the DLC in Dutch translates to the Tower of Order instead of Side Order, and considering the giant tower in the center of the plaza, that's probably where the campaign takes place. Now, besides that, all we have to go off of are the flashing images that happen there, and I'll be showing them on screen and covering each of them a bit. There's this image of red and maybe a little bit of black on it, which is really hard to tell what it's from and frankly looks pretty creepy. This one is incredibly blurry, but cool enough, features a weapon that we don't really know of. It has some parts that resemble the splatter shot, but it's obviously way bigger, so maybe this is a new weapon or a hero mode exclusive weapon. These black spikes are a cool shot, but as pointed out by Jesse, they are black spires that resemble hostile nuclear warning architecture. This, by the way, is communication to deter human intrusion at nuclear waste sites, which can be within or above the magnitude of 10,000 years, which is where Splatoon takes place. Outside of that, we have a picture of Marina in the new outfit, like I mentioned, a picture of 8 on what seems to be an elevator. There's someone else in the shop, but it's hard to tell who they are. This main elevator entrance, which does have a weird detail, there are no octo suction cups, and the ears are actually that of an inkling. Everything else fits that of an octoling, so I have no idea why this one is different, but maybe there's a reason for that. This looks like it could potentially be a level and also features coral, which is something I'll talk about at the end because there is a lot of this white coral everywhere, including at the plaza. Pearl also in her damn socks outfit. This is probably the most interesting image. It features some red, some black, and white coral. We can see this kind of black sludge in a few other places as well, but it's most prominently featured here. This coral is bleached, where it's not dead, but it means that the organisms that live with it are moving out. Maybe some sort of symbolism for how everyone moved on from the Splatoon 2 plaza. We have another picture of Agent 8 and again what looks like an elevator. This could potentially be Tartar at the bottom because this does resemble a phone coming out of the right side, but it's hard to tell. This could be a memory or maybe they survived. Personally hoping it's a memory. There's another image of the Octoling holding their head. This could be a memory from Octo Expansion, as this looks very similar to where they started off from that single player campaign, and hitting their head would explain the whole memory loss thing. This image is the most mysterious one, featuring cloning, which has been talked about in the Splatoon world before, and primarily Little Judd is a clone, and so if this is some sort of cloning process, it would not be new. There's a blurred out picture of Pearl and Marina here, as well as the main image we saw, which doesn't really show too much. Now, I hope to come to a theory here, but I couldn't really come with enough conclusive to tell what the story mode is about, and maybe that's for the better. It's kind of nice not knowing what exactly is going to happen, and Octo Expansion did the same thing with its trailer. Another thing worth noting is in that trailer, there were some scenes that never actually happened, such as Pearl and Marina being in the train, and I liked it better when we had no idea what the story was, so maybe it's for the best that we can't piece everything together quite yet. It definitely has enough hints to pique some interest, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed my analysis, and I'll see you later. Well everyone, many details about the fresh season have been revealed, including the returning special of the Kraken, some new weapon kits, and more. So today I'm going to break down all the info and some hidden details you might have missed. So let's start with the main thing, Kraken. This special technically has a new name, being the Kraken Royale, and it has a lot of changes. The size of the special is massively increased. However, it is now a 2-shot while jumping. It has startup and retains the same massive end lag it has before as a major weakness. You now have a charge mode via the ZR button, which gives you a dash forward that seems to be impossible to stop, especially since the special is still invincible. Duration is one area where we know the special got a significant buff compared to Splatoon 1. At the end of that game it was 5 seconds, at the start of the game it was 6 seconds, and right now in Splatoon 3 it seems to be exactly 7.4 seconds. And finally, it's listed that the Squid Roll and Surge can be used for mobility. Unsure if these will count as attacks, but I would assume that they are probably the same as normal jumping, and maybe both of them can even be charged, or at least the Surge can. Finally, the special also has an indicator when it's about to end, similar to the Crab Tank. Now in Splatoon 1, Swim Speed and Ninja Squid affected Kraken's speed, but considering it's larger and slower now, I'm unsure if these will still influence it, though it's definitely possible. Another ability that could have an impact on it is Intensify Action Up, possibly boosting the Squid roll in Surge, which is another possibility. Special power-up will most likely be Duration, just like it was in Splatoon 1. I already talked about a rework Kraken before this ever happened, and while the way the devs did it was a bit different from mine, it achieved a lot of the same goals, making it more balanced and adding more depth to the special. Outside of the invincibility, I'm not too worried about anything here, and I think it's very cool for a new special weapon. Kraken isn't the only new special being added to the game, as today revealed the Super Jump. This is a good name, as these launch and they're basically decoy super jump markers. Once they land, there's a little bit of a timing, and then they all explode. These jump markers have the same names as you and your teammates. They are literally decoys that could actually hide your own jump if it's anywhere near where this field lands. It feels like an interesting hybrid of missiles and bomb launcher. It looks like it has limited range in order that it can be launched in, so you can't just launch it across the map, and it hits a specific location. And on top of that, enemies are able to destroy it. I'm very curious how well bombs are going to do against this, especially since the devs probably want to encourage players to use bombs to camp landings, and the high damage and explosion radius might be great at clearing these. Outside of that, we really don't know too much, so we'll have to see later what the exact range, damage numbers, and special power-up effects are. Let's talk about the new kits, because there's some downsides here. The weapons we're seeing are the Tri-Nouveau, the Crack-On Roller, the L3D, NZAP 89, Neo Splash, Neo Sploosh, Clash Blaster, Firefin Splat Charger, Rapid Blaster Deco, 96 Deco, and Custom Jet Squelcher. This is 11 kits, 12 if you count the chargers as separately compared to 10, which sounds nice, but it looks like we're no longer getting any new main weapons since the special is the main new thing, and on top of that, 6 of the 11 weapons here are shooters. This means that now almost 1/3 of every weapon in the game when this update launches will be a shooter. Reminder, there are 11 weapon classes. The only good news is that there's only 4 shooters left to get kits, Nova, H3 Squeezer, and 52, so this can't happen again. That being said though, it's very disappointing. Gold Dynamo's had a model since the first trailer that was literally put in the game after the update, and it's still somehow not here. Brellas, Splatanas, and Stringers, 2 of these being brand new classes by the way, still have not gotten a single kit or new weapon. Frankly, this is the most disappointing part of the update, and I'm incredibly confused why they're adding so many shooters. I can understand it being more than the other weapon classes, but why is it this much more? Come on. Let's talk about the stages. The Ruin stage was seen in the Direct, and it actually looks pretty good. It's kind of like a smaller reef, however it could be changed. Since the original image we saw in the Direct, this is a map overview of what it could look like. Now this is missing a graded path to the bottom left, so this is actually missing an extra route, but even with that taken out, it looks pretty open, especially since the left side has some climbable and inkable walls. I think it's a very solid looking stage that might play very well. I really like the spawn region as well. We'll have to see how it looks in ranked modes though. Manta is a fine addition. It's still a bit of a cramped stage that forces you to fight through mid with very little approach options, but on Tower, Rainmaker, and Clam Blitz, the block on the left side makes it a lot better. The spawn area should also be improved with the new super jump system, making the routes to the right and left side just a little bit faster, and I think overall it's still a good map, so it's a positive addition to me. Right now we can only see the turf war layout as well for this, so outside of the rail to the right side, which should expand the defending options a little bit and is a positive change, we don't really have much to go off of here. Honestly though, considering the quality of Splatoon 3 maps right now, I think these two are going to be great for the game. Even if they're not as amazing as a stage like Reef, it's definitely a positive that will make rotations feel a lot better to play. Another thing we can notice from the image is the Splatoon 1 victory animations, as the Tri-Slosher pose is the same as the Slosher victory animation in that game. This has been in the game's code for a while, and it's more than likely that we'll be getting Splatoon 1 animations with every single weapon. Just makes sense with the Inkopolis DLC at the same time. And that's not even the only one. The roller looks similar to Splatoon 2's victory animation for Inklings. I hope the Octoling victory animations come back at some point, and I'm really curious what they do for weapons that weren't in Splatoon 1, but it's awesome to finally see more victory animations that involve the weapons. Another thing we can see here is a jukebox. This is also something that's been in the game's code for a bit that allows you to pick the lobby music, so hopefully that's what we'll be able to do when the update comes out. I will briefly mention that online table turf and league battle has not been directly confirmed yet. It's still likely that these would be happening, but we don't know for sure yet, and nothing in the image points to them. In terms of Salmon Run, it looks looks like we're gonna get a new balloon salmon enemy, and one of the images looks like a hint for the new king salmonid, maybe being revealed in the next big run. Outside of this, we have two completely confirmed kits, both being Splatoon 1 references. The 96 scale deco with its classic Splatoon 1 kit of Wall and Kraken. Much deserved. This will already be a major step up from the vanilla kit, as Wall is a perfect sub-weapon for it. And the special weapon, while not only great in itself, is a throwback to a very powerful kit from the first game that should feel great to use. Kraken Roller, on the other hand, is gonna be a bit weaker. Maybe if it's 180p it could farm Kraken to try to get in, but with Beacon and low painting power, it's going to be tricky. That being said, it should be fun and not that bad, so I think it'll be cool, and finally, we have a third Beacon weapon in the game. We do actually have two other sub-weapons on the other ones that we probably know. L3, if you look at the table turf card very closely, seems to have Torpedo, finally not getting Burst Bomb returning, which is pretty surprising to me. During the Kraken reveal, we also saw the new Tri-Slosher. You can tell by the handle being a different color, and judging by the ink tank line, it looks to be 55%, which would mean it has Auto Bomb. At first, it looks like this doesn't reference any returning sub, which is weird, but a beta version of the Tri-Slosher Nuvo from Splatoon 2 had Auto Bomb launcher, so maybe that's what they're going for? We can use this same sub-weapon line trick to find Jet Squelcher's most likely sub, which in this case looks like around a 60% sub. Honestly, this is pretty disappointing. I never had a problem with Burst Bomb on the custom Jet kit, so I really hope this is some random dev shenanigans and it actually is going to get a Burst Bomb. Regardless, if I had to pick something that's most likely for this, I guess I would have to say Toxic Mist since it's a returning sub, but I really hope I'm wrong. We already know 4 of the kits. NZAP has Auto Bomb returning from Splatoon 2 and the new Super Chump special. This will play very similar to the 89 of that game, just a little bit more healthy. Clash Blaster, on the other hand, gets Curling Bomb back and Super Chump once again. I did predict Curling Bomb on this thing, so I'm not surprised, but it's a bit of a disappointing kit. It's going to be very difficult to do anything with how Curling Bomb is. It's nice for a paint trail, but that's really about it. And for a weapon that doesn't paint and struggles to poke enemies at a distance, it's going to be very hard to get in. For the rest of these, we can only speculate, but I'll briefly try to make some predictions based off previous patterns. I'm going to assume that 4 weapons will be getting Kraken and 4 weapons getting Super Chump. That way it's similar to the current amount of most of the Splatoon 3 specials, as well as 1 weapon getting Inkjet because it's only at 2 and Beacon finally went from 2 to 3. Going back to Tri-Slosher, I think Wavebreaker is something that could be reasonable based off the Splatoon 1 kit, but I actually think they probably want to give Kraken to a few things, and it would make sense to spread it across a few weapon classes. So I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up going with a new Tri-Kit and gave this Kraken. For L3, this seems like an easy weapon to give Inkjet to, and considering we've added a 3rd Beacon weapon, I think that it's only fair Inkjet would get a 3rd weapon in this update. Well, since Custom Jet doesn't have Burst Bomb and Kraken's already on the 96, I'm assuming this is going to get Toxic Mist as a returning 60% sub and the brand new Super Chump special to kinda be a reference to an old Splatoon 2 special like Tenna Missiles. It's a fine kit, but Jet deserves Burst Bomb. It was never the problem. Splash is another one I think would be pretty obvious. We don't have a shooter with Zipcaster yet, and it had Zipcaster in the trailer, so I think it would get that, and Mist would be the easy returning sub from Splatoon 2, considering Suction Bomb is already on a lot of shooters. Zipcaster is also similar to Inkjet being a kind of off-angle fly around the map special, so it would make a lot of sense for the weapon, and I think it would be really fun and cool if they did that. For Sploosh, I'm honestly gonna go with Dude's prediction of Point Sensor Kraken referencing the Splatoon 1 kit yet again for the Neo Sploosh. Beacon didn't work for it really well, and we already got Beacon on the Kraken roller, so I think it makes more sense to go with a kit like this. Now, I've always assumed that the new Charger would be a reference to Firefin with Wall and Tri-Strike, and while I still think that, this new special seems like an even better opportunity to represent Bomb Launcher, so I'm gonna predict Splash, Wall, and Super Chump. Now, Rapid Blaster is a little bit of copium for me. I'll be honest, I really am hoping for Torpedo Crab to get Crapid back. They could reference just Suction Bomb again, but I don't think that kit's ever been super popular, so I think it has a chance they reference the 3rd one instead. Crab is also only on 4 weapons, meaning it's one of the more likely specials. That is about everything we know so far though. Overall, I'm still very hyped for this update, though I do hope there's a little bit more we get outside of what we know right now. I'll be covering more information like the new weapon kits as we find more information from Splatoon Twitter, so check out my 2nd channel if you want to see analysis on that immediately, and I might upload some of it it to the main channel. So let me know if you guys want to see some early kit thoughts. With that all being said, thank you so much for watching. And by the way, I want to say a big thank you for getting me to 100,000 subscribers. It is an amazing milestone I am very happy to reach, and I'll have a video on that soon. Hello everyone, yesterday we got the trailer for the brand new season. We got to take a look at a bunch of stuff, and there's a lot of new details to take a look at, mainly with how the new weapons work and some of the kits. So I can't wait to bring this to you guys. Let's get started and subscribe if you enjoy. Let's start off with the new maps. First off, we have this brand new one, which I think is okay. The main thing that makes this map feel a lot better, in my opinion, compared to the previous ones we've gotten, is the side route they try to implement works. Both Brinewater and Umami kind of have this right route to get out of spawn, and both of them kind of suck. Whereas in this one, it's very easy to get to it on all the different levels. It's wide and it's much better of an angle. It's still not a full-on alternate route, but it's definitely going to make getting out of your base way easier, which is important because this map is pretty damn small. Besides that, there's a bit of cover on the lower route, and I think it'll be fine in zones and clams, but even with the extended right side, I think Tower and Rainmaker are not gonna feel great on this map, unfortunately. We also got Humpback, and yeah, this isn't really a fan favorite stage I wanted back, and it led to some of the worst gameplay in Splatoon 2. This map was very infamous for double booyah and double missile spam being things on it at 2 different points of its meta, and in this game it's probably going to be booyah and tri-strike spam to throw it at the zone. The main issue with this map, especially when it's not in its Tower, Rainmaker, or Clam Blitz layout, is that the only way to back out is kind of that little grate area on the side, which is very awkward and slow. So any specials that can limit your movement become very good on this map, and those kind of aren't great to fight. On the tower control layout, we can see that at least they aren't removing options, as that gray block is still there and the ink rail. However, on the right side of the map is the first real change, which is this new uninkable block they've added around the top of it. This is new terrain, so I honestly don't mind it, but I don't think it's gonna do too much. Maybe it makes that spot a little bit better for longer range weapons though, if you're trying to peek the far right side. Still though, what this map actually needs is all these walls around the middle to have quite a bit of them be inkable. And yeah, if you know Nintendo's track record with paintable walls in this game, you can see why I'm a bit unoptimistic. It could be fun in Rainmaker though, especially with the checkpoints, but as a whole, I think it's going to just be okay. We'll get Reef back one day. Alright, next, let's break down the two new weapons. First off, we have this new brush weapon. I have done a concept for a heavy brush before, and yeah, this is definitely a heavier brush. It swings about the speed of Octobrush, but the first main mechanic to get used to is this has a bit of startup before it flicks. Every single time it tries to do so, you can see it winds it up kind of like swinging a baseball bat, and then the flicks go across normally. This means if you're fighting this weapon, it's going to have a delay before it can start dealing damage to you, and that means its kill time is going to be slower than Octobrush's. It will be very easy to react to. The trade-off for that is it seems like its roll speed is actually comparable to Octobrush, and this weapon has a lot of range and very good paint. You can see here once it kills the Dually Squelcher, it already has a paint trail very wide for it to be able to move it. This combined with the roll speed means its mobility should actually be pretty solid, especially for the range it has. It doesn't hit too far away, but it's definitely going to be much more of a long distance paint type weapon that doesn't fight as much, but has the capabilities to move around and fight more than similar weapons like Dynamo. We can also see its sub-weapon line. We're going to be looking at a lot of these, by the way, but it seems to be a 70% sub, and I don't think it's 75, meaning it's not Beacon. This could be Splat Bomb, Suction Bomb, or Curling Bomb as the subs with that ink cost. That's really all we have. The weapon's not inherently complicated or anything, and it looks pretty good. I think this kind of range value on a brush should be pretty interesting. The 3-shot means it's got pretty good damage, and honestly, I'm pretty excited for it. Definitely gonna give it a shot when it releases. However, the S-Blast 92 is absolutely what I'm way more hyped for. I am so excited for this thing. Its main gimmick is that it changes its range value. It has a short range mode when jumping and a long range mode when grounded. This was literally a concept I had before this game came out with a shift blaster, and it just looks so fun. Having a long range one-shot direct like range blaster, but on a different, more versatile one could be incredibly fun. Besides that, it has good ink efficiency, a 60 or 65% sub, so there's a chance for Fizzy or Torpedo, and I'm gonna talk about it in full detail in a video coming in just a few days. I have so much to say about this weapon and about it with blasters as a whole that I think it's honestly worth its own video. It should be really fun. Just give it a little bit of time, and maybe by then we'll know a little bit more specifics I can talk about. Hey guys, so today we got more info on the S-Blast 92, including the kit of Sprinkler and Reef Slider. Wow. Yeah, I'll talk about this Friday too. It's not good. I'm probably playing the washing machine in the NA Open. Let's get into more kit hunting. Nova Shot appears to have around a 50 to 55% sub weapon. If it is 55%, which is what it does seem like, that would be Auto Bomb, which I think would be fine with it. It would definitely fit the whole location thing they went with for the first kit. And for the special weapon, we have Inkjet, which while it is very strong, I'm unsure if the main weapon in its current state can be worth picking with Ballpoint right there. Still, it should be a really fun kit for the weapon, and I could 100% see it being viable with the right sub. Splatoon Wiper Deco, on the other hand, leaves no room to interpretation. We get a very clear shot of this thing's ink tank at 75%, which only one sub in the game costs that much ink. Squid Beacon. Outside of Tenebrello, which has its own fair share of consistency problems and having vacuum, all of the beacon weapons are incredibly short range stuff that doesn't really work super well. This is the first time it's on a weapon that honestly could really fit it. Beacons could be great for being placed on off angles, and the weapon paints insanely well with good painting range and the ability to poke with its charge slash, meaning it honestly will be okay without a bomb. However, with its slow kill time, it will still be very dependent on what special it gets. It can get it very fast, but it needs to be something that can help it get picks faster. I think something like Ink Storm, Booyah Bomb for survivability, Crab Tank, Inkjet, or, well, if it got missiles, of course, it would be good because missiles are kind of broken. So any special like that, I think it'd be a great alternate kit that would open up more playstyle options besides the super QR, gonna flank and feed type thing. Very excited to see what we get with it. And on the victory screen, we get to see Tetra. Here's the good news. It's a 60% sub. This means it has a chance to get Fizzy Bomb. Here's the downside. 60% could be the repeat sub of Sprinkler, which would not be great. And in the blaster video, we can see Tetra throw a Sprinkler. Why did they repeat this sub weapon on this weapon? I don't know. They even put it on the blaster already too, but they decided we needed 2 of them. Now having the same amount of subs tied with Splat Bomb with 8. Wonderful. Hopefully that thing is a good special, because otherwise it's in a bad spot. Zipcaster, please. Stephanie over here has a 40% sub, and this is the Big Swig Roller. And again, from the blaster footage we got today, we know someone on the Big Swig team has line marker. We could roll out the Tetra, so it's either the Swig, the Nova, or the new brush. Highly likely it's a Swig considering the ink tank. We also know one of them has mine, which would be the brush or Nova. Here's the good news, Big Swig players. Honestly, you don't really care about your sub that much. The weapon can do so many things that, like, while a good sub would be nice for it, you can get away having a bad one if you get a good special. If it gets a good special, this could be a higher, even top tier weapon. But line marker just unfortunately doesn't really do enough for this weapon. The main weapon's kind of good at comboing with itself anyway. I guess it gives you the ability to locate people, so you could have that as an option, but it's only 5 seconds of location. No idea why they wouldn't just do sensor with it if they wanted that. I'll also point out that, of course, we get to see all of the other weapon kits, game-breaking analysis, I know, but for those that aren't very easily seen in the trailer, we have the Heavy Splatling Deco, the H3 Nozzle Nose D, Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, and that new Big Swig that I just talked about. However, besides sub-weapons, we actually have a hint for specials. This is the Splatter Shot, Carbon Roller Deco, and Squeezer on this team. All of them pop Trizuka here. This is likely an event where everyone has to use Trizuka and therefore is picking Trizuka weapons. As if it could be any weapon getting Trizuka, they probably would have shown some of the others. And there's one weapon here we can see before the Trizukas are popped. If you look at the player in the middle and their weapon, it looks very much like Umbrella Pose. On top of that, the paint near them basically confirms this is 10. Zuka only being on 4 weapons makes it a prime candidate to be on a new kit, and with a Table Turf card, we can see that Tanacerel Umbrella is one of the new weapons we're gonna be getting. So very high chance we get a 10 Umbrella with a Trizuka. Trizuka on 10 should be a very cool combo, as the shield can both protect you while painting, allowing you to move with the special, as well as blocking for you, so you can get a bit closer when trying to challenge things like chargers, or have an option to block for you if people try to rush. It sounds like a super fun combo, and I think it's gonna be very good. Wow, that's awesome to see a special on a really cool weapon. I'm glad we were able to get that off to a good start. Hey, what's that in the corner on the bottom left?
Scale up. Enhance. Son of a...
That's a lot of ink splatters. And it's all the way back in the spawn, which means you'd have to be really far away too. Oh no, it's a new missile weapon, guys. This means that one of the weapons on this purple team over here has 10 missiles.
He could be any one of us.
There's the Splatana Wiper Deco we saw earlier here, as well as the Dually Squelcher. This one is the most likely candidate, as it had missiles back in Splatoon 2. Well, this has Shark, so it's not a candidate. Finally though, the Heavy Splatling Deco. So one of these 4 weapons is probably gonna get missiles. Yeah, they're not done with missiles, guys. More than likely, we're gonna be seeing more of it as these updates roll out. We have challenges coming, and a lot of people were wondering if this was going to replace League, and I think it is, and here's 2 reasons why. First off, the color scheme is practically identical, but 2, the devs also mentioned that there would be some special modes thrown in here with League back when the Splatoon 3 Direct came out, and I mean, if that's not what this is, I don't know what to tell you. It does look fun though. It seems like there'll be ways to lock everyone with a specific special, which cool, that sounds fun. You have the fog like from Salmon Run, which could be interesting. The most fun of these by far though, the extreme jumps. So many of the maps might be way more playable in this mode than they would be in the base game. I'm really excited to experiment with this, and I am very, very much hoping we can play these in private battles. I felt like this game really needs some new modes to kind of spice things up, especially on the more casual side of things, and this does exactly what I wanted. I'm super hyped for it, honestly. By the way, the challenge mode windows for this are only 2 hours and spaced out quite a bit. I have no idea why. Why not just have one last until the other starts? This is such a random change, so we might miss some of these challenges, and that sucks. Finally, of course, we got a new Salmon Run stage, Jammin' Slammin' Junction, and this looks really cool. I love the little gap in the middle that all the salmonids could spawn from, and I'm not sure how it would play. Honestly, it's a bit difficult to tell. It does seem a little bit small, so I'd assume this is probably the high tide version of it, but honestly, the track record with the new Salmon Run stages have been really good. I expect it to be a banger. Also, they got a stage behind them, so if we can actually see some of the Salmon Run bands performing there, that would be so cool. We also got some new emotes, of course, but the most notable one is this fist bump one. We've actually seen this data mined a while back, which I'm not going to show on screen for obvious reasons, but it wasn't complete, and we had no idea how it would interact with the second player. It seems like the second person can actually have whatever emote they want, and they'll just do the fist bump after, which is the best way they could implement it. But that's about everything. I'm a little disappointed to only see 9 alternate kits so far. I hope there's more that weren't shown in the table turf cards, because no new stringer, even a kit, for an entire year just sounds awful, and 9 is very few. But outside of that, I'm pretty hyped for everything, and I really like the new weapons in this update. They seem really interesting. Hello everyone, the Drizzle Season 2023 is here. We got a new trailer with some new information that I want to go through and try to point out a few hidden details, mainly a lot of those sub-weapon lines. Let's see what we can find. If you enjoy this analysis, be sure to subscribe. I'll have more upcoming news on this update in the future, and let's get started. One of the new features we got in this update was the ability to change some of your headgear, mainly being able to flip around which way you wear your caps. But there's another feature I think some people missed. It seems like you'll also be able to oversize some of the gear. You can see this shirt being made way larger, so it seems like there'll be more customization for the gear you're able to wear than what we've seen so far, which is pretty cool. Let's take a look at our first new stage, Crab Leg Capital. I actually really like how this looks so far. It's not a perfect layout, far from it, but there's a lot of unique positives here. Middle of the stage, while having some limited cover, is really open with a lot of different routes and ways around. In fact, this is one of the few stages to have 2 ink rails. It also has a pretty unique layout with an absurd amount of grates across the middle of the stage, including some that add the main route to get out of mid. It feels a bit more unique, and while it's not a full-on gimmick, it definitely gives it a unique sense of identity. The spawn region also seems fairly open, and as a whole, I think this layout is really solid. My 2 main complaints would be an absurd amount of uninkable walls, meaning there's a lot of one-way drops, especially outside of the right side of your spawn. The main issue with this stage is it seems like the only way to get through mid is this grate bridge. You couldn't even have the area with the rail right next to it as a ramp or something. Having a route on the opposite side of the map, maybe if one of these walls could be turned into a ramp on other ranked modes, would be really nice and make it an amazing stage. But as of now, I think this will still be pretty solid, and I'm looking forward to playing on it. The other new map reminds me a lot of Schellendorf Institute. While it doesn't have the glass, you can still see the kind of ceiling archetype that it has there, including the little ramps up there. It no longer seems connected, but it has a lot of cover, and it seems like a very strong position for weapons like backlines to be able to stand on. The main difference here compared to something like Schellendorf is you can actually climb there directly from mid, at least on one side. We can't tell for sure if you can actually get all the way around on the sides though, but I hope we can. If your only way through is middle, either climbing up that wall or going through underneath it, might be a problem. I think the side route's gonna be really necessary given the amount of strong high ground on this map. Personally, I'm not as sure about this one. Schellendorf wasn't a stage I was particularly a fan of, but this layout has potential to be better than it. I think it's all gonna come down to if the side really does have a unique route to go through, or if it's gonna be really limited. We have to see. Also, as a final cool detail, from the first map, you can actually see Hagglefish way down there. That's really cool. I like this connected world type stuff. We have two new weapons here, a bucket and a splatling. The slosher is called the Dreadringer. It literally seems like a normal slosher with slightly less range that sloshes twice at once and kills in 3 hits. If the ink efficiency on this is solid, its pain output will probably be a bit better than something like Reg Slosher, which is a problem for it. It's hard to say if this will be better or worse at killing with it being a 3-hit, but I could see some flexibility because of the multiple shots. It being a 3-shot seems more than fair, and honestly, I'm kind of curious how this weapon's gonna play out. It's a very unique gimmick, and I think this will be a weapon that takes a lot of getting used to as to how it fires. The next new weapon is the Heavy Edit Splatling. Very weird name for it, I gotta say, and this seems like a hybrid of the Mini Splatling and Heavy. Its charge time and range seem to be in the middle of those two weapons, so I guess kinda similar to Nautilus, but this thing doesn't have a charge hold like that weapon. It seems to be a 4-shot kill from what I can tell, so I have no idea what's supposed to distinguish this thing from Nautilus. Obviously it seems a bit faster, but I have a feeling there's something else to this weapon that we don't know about. It just seems a little too simple at the moment. The Splatoon Twitter accounts usually give some more new info on these main weapons a few days after the trailer comes out, so I'll have to do a separate video on them once we get that extra info, but I would be on the lookout for some kind of gimmick. The weapon does look very strong though, and I find it hilarious that they're showing it off against a Dynamo, failing to kill with a vertical flick twice. That weapon is just sad. At least it exists now though. We also know this Splatling's full kit, which is Curling Bomb and Tacticooler. This feels like they're definitely shooting for a Mini Splatling mid-range support type of deal, even more mid-range given that the Splatling has more of it. It's a very strong kit. Curling can be alright for it as a mobility option since you do have to charge a bit before firing, and Splatlings aren't that picky with their subs, so I think it works here, and it can also pain for its cooler. Cooler obviously is great right now, and great on Splatlings especially. I think this will be a very strong combination. This could be one of the best new weapons they've ever added, especially this early. Speaking of kits, we're only getting 8 new ones, not counting the 2 brand new weapons. I've seen some people have some copium theories that this card down here flipped over as an extra kit, but I got bad news for you guys. That's not a card, that's a deck. You can tell if you look at it well. It's a lot clearer in the second image where there's 2 decks, 1 on each side, what they're really supposed to be. Sorry guys. So yeah, only 8 kits. It's quite underwhelming, honestly. The amount has gotten smaller in pretty much every update by now. That being said, let's see what info we have about the sub weapons on these. Blob we can see super clearly with a 40% sub, which means there's only one thing it could be, line marker. This would be the second bucket to get dart. I've seen some Blob players be very excited about this. I personally don't think it's very good, but hey, I'm happy for them if they think it's good. Gold Dynamo Roller has a 70% sub. Suction's never been on Dynamo, so I doubt it. We already saw Curling Bomb on something else, and Splat Bomb's been on Gold Dynamo twice. So yeah, Splat Bomb seems very likely. We know someone on the orange team has a sprinkler, and during the Rainmaker Challenge section, which by the way, Splatoon NA accidentally leaked yesterday, very funny, has a sprinkler in it. You can see it on the wall right here, and right on the block behind it is a tri-stringer in the perfect spot to be able to throw it. Honestly, I like this sub for this weapon. It's not amazing at being able to cover for itself, but it's something it could set up to help its pain output, which is something tri-stringer does actually struggle with. It definitely fits that weapon pretty well, however, it's gonna really depend on what special it gets. If it's gonna charge something garbage, it's not gonna be worth it. But if this is getting like, I don't know, a crab, then yeah, that could be a very strong kit. Octoburst subline looks like about 55%, which makes me think of Autobomb. Finally, I've seen some people say that some weapons might have Inkjet due to the challenges thing. However, look at the wording of this challenge. This says Inkjets for everyone, and if you look at the gear on the Inkjets real closely, we can see that these are actually the same players that have been on both teams. So unless if they're adding a bunch of Inkjet weapons in this update, I think it's safe to say that it's not happening. But hey though, on the good news of things, this means compared to something like Too Many Trizukas, they may be reworking this challenge to where any weapon can be used and they'll all have this special instead of only the weapons with the special being locked to it. That would be really cool. Well, we can confirm quite a few new kits from the video we got this morning. The new Slosher has Suction Bomb and Reef Slider. Honestly, a pretty solid kit. Slider can still combo off of the damage from Bucket, but you know, not the best special, still a solid option. Brella has Autobomb Inkjet. This this is like a top 5 kits they could have given the weapon. It's actually crazy. I'll talk about it on the second channel soon, I promise. I think it's got potential, especially if the main gets buffed. Dynamo Roller has Super Chump, which is weird because Bow also has Super Chump. That's right, we're getting 2 chump weapons in one update, and I like both these kits. I don't think it's better than the current Dynamo kit, but for the bow, I think it is easily better than its first kit. It'll help its paint output a lot, and its bow shots will be able to combo off the chump damage, which I think should be pretty interesting. GooTuber has Fizzy Bomb. That's pretty strong. We have to see what special it gets, obviously. Goo has been very lucky with kits in this game. And finally, due to process of elimination, we know the special of the Heavy Spiraling, bow, and we know the Blob can't have rain on the field because the vanilla kit has it, which means Octobrush Nouveau has Inkstorm. Really makes me wonder what weapon will get Kraken in this update. I feel like Machine will get Whale as a reference to the Table Turf card and it having it in the old trailers. So that would leave Blob, GooTuber, and Ballpoint as the candidates, and Ballpoint wouldn't make much sense since we just put it on Heavy Deco. I also want to point out here that one of these weapons is probably getting Crab since it's never been added in an update before, and if it's Ballpoint, it'll be very funny to see it with 2 good kits. Honestly, while there's not too many kits so far, we're seeing quite a lot of strong ones, so that's nice at least. However, it's hard to talk about the kits without addressing the elephant in the room. Yeah, we've only added 8 alternate kits, which means right now, counting the 2 new main weapons, there's 22 weapons without a second kit. At the rate they're going, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes all the seasons for every weapon to get a second kit. We only got 4 of them left, and if they keep slightly slowing it down, yeah, it could make it, especially given new main weapons. I hope it's not the case. I still hope 3rd kits are happening, but it's hard to say at this point. That's really all I gotta say analysis-wise. I don't have too much for this one. I wish I could be more positive about this, but I gotta be honest here at the end. The amount of content for a 1-year anniversary update is really low, and honestly I'm pretty disappointed with it, especially with the kits which just seem to be getting lower and lower in every update. I'm gonna try my best to really make some cool content during this time, and for those of you who are supporting me through this, I really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get some more extra info that wasn't revealed in this trailer, and we'll see what happens. So more side order is here. Yeah, it's coming out in spring 2024. I actually talked about this a bit on the second channel because we kind of knew from the season files, but delay aside, there's a lot of stuff to look into here. So let's focus on the positives and break down this new trailer. And if you enjoy this and want to see more side order content from me, be sure to subscribe. Let's get started with the characters we know of. First off, we have Pearl, whose only presence is shown in the form of this drone. They are not physically present. We do know a few things about them though. The palette device that allows you to attach certain ability enhancements is her palette. It states it directly. And it seems like in battle, she's basically gonna function as a weird version of Little Buddy, being a form of sub-weapon. We can see on the menu that she has splat bombs attached to her, and she can do damage in battle. As you can see, the different color of the damage being done here, as well as the different damage number, clearly is stated as hers. And in fact, she's even thrown at one point. We'll touch on the upgrade system more later, but she is able to be leveled up. Next up was the big surprise, Deadfish, also known as Oct. They have the most dialogue out of anyone here. According to what they say, it seems like they were sucked into this world, and that they're an old friend of Marina, possibly knowing them before they went to the surface and back when they were in the Octoling army. They mostly just stay in the elevator, they got a cool 8-ball hat, and the main bit of lore is their name over here translates in German to 8. Sharing the same number as the main character you play as has gotta mean something here, I think. Deadfish does have some similarities to Marina, both doing music stuff, and I'm also hoping with seeing this character that we'll finally get some more answers as to what exactly sanitization does. Like with Agent 8, who we'll mention in a second, they also have a little device on their arm, but it's hard to tell what exactly it does. Speaking of 8, they are confirmed the playable character, so finally we have a returning protagonist that you're actually able to play as. There's also a lot more Octo expansion references here. At one point earlier in the trailer, we can see mem cakes possibly being manufactured. Considering it's their memories, that is pretty drastic. And the primary weapon of the campaign, it seems, is these brand new dualies, which it's worth noting is Pearl's main weapon, who is the person helping you with this. We do know there are more though, because on the Splatoon website we do see the boy version of Agent 8, which has a Splatana stamper, which also has a unique skin to it. Looks very cool. Finally, there is Marina, who is never physically shown in this entire trailer, so just a few images of art from the first one is all we've seen of this character. They are talked about by Deadfish a little bit in the fact that they knew them, but that doesn't really give us much. However, in the gameplay, there are a few cans that seem to have her logo on it. So we do know she's here somewhat, but it's hard to say what. There's a lot of of villain theories and her getting kidnapped theories out there. We'll have to see which is true. Besides that though, we do have the enemies. They're all fish. For once, no rival Octoling reskin as far as we can see, which nice change of pace. These appear to be parrotfish, which in the real world do have correlation with coral, and as far as we know, they're the only enemy we see, and they all have red eyes. Onto the world though, it's worth mentioning there is a lot of glitch effects and some code ones. Some of these seem very similar to the screens of The Matrix, and I'm wondering if there's some implications there. I saw Ambers on Twitter bring up a very old Splatfest quote from Pearl and Marina, where Marina says, "It's funny because we're all living in a simulation and free will is a lie." You know, that was a funny quote as is, but I mean, with all the hints we've seen in this trailer, deadfish being sucked in, 8 and their weapons just appear from polygons, and Pearl is a machine here, so who knows? Maybe this is some form of digital world or simulation that they're trapped in, not the real world. Though it turns out for Agent 8, this actually functions as their respawn timer. Twitter user Rin noticed the little soul thing there, which is a nice touch. The only other things I can note from the world building is there is this meat grinder thing, which we see quite a lot in the trailer actually. We don't really know much about it other than some of the ink seems to come out of it. Who knows how dark that could be considering the Octo expansion blunders in the final fight, but considering how often it's shown off, I'm willing to bet this has more importance than we're originally able to note. In general though, I think this world building gives off a lot of Nier Automata vibes, even from someone who hasn't really played it and only watched a little bit, which is pretty cool. The devs have stated that they are talking about the game having heavy replayability. It does seem in the game that you have difficulties that unlock different perks as you progress up the tower floors, so you can end up having different sets of perks and loadouts each time. For example, we can also see in-game that the damage numbers can change a lot and you're often swarmed by a lot of enemies. There are still many other staples of the single player in the past, such as the crates, armor, usable specials, and ink rails, which we can all see at some point. And of course, there is some kind of boss at the end. The goop in it looks pretty similar to the sanitization ink at the end of Octo Expansion, and the red eyes look somewhat similar to Tartar. Though, personally, I hope they don't bring him back fully, because I kind of like how he went out in that game, and want something different. This may play very different to Octo Expansion. I've seen a lot of people comparing them, but if it's intended to be replayed a lot, maybe the gameplay aspect is a bit shorter, or maybe there's some variance depending on how you progress the tower that can change the levels. I'm not sure, but it does seem like they're trying to go for a very different vibe with the story mode, and it seems a lot more experimental. Here's some other small stuff I noticed. One of the challenges just has the Splat Zones logo on it. No idea why, and it doesn't even seem to indicate the challenge is anything about painting the zone. One of the biggest discoveries we've seen is that the text on one of the abilities for run speed says it can boost your speed in either Octoling or Inkling form. When I shared this post, I did not realize how many Agent 4 copium posts there were, but yeah, people are very much hoping we get Agent 4, and considering how many Splatoon 2 characters are in this, I'd be kinda surprised if they weren't. This may just be a translation though. It is the same as the actual run speed ability in the game, so maybe they just forgot to take out Inkling from it. But I don't know, even then, that seems like a really easy error to spot. Maybe in some parts of the game we're playing as a different character, possibly an Inkling, or maybe there's some odd thing where we can change our species? No idea. Speaking of things we have no idea about, what the hell is that voice thing at the very end of the trailer? Honestly, I have no leads for any of this, and it's really hard to tell what it's referencing. Maybe it's something entirely new. So remember that giant machine that we talked about a little bit earlier? Yeah, it has a yellow torpedo logo on it. It is like one of the only recognizable things about it, and I have no idea why it's just this sub-weapon out of anything. Speaking of subs and specials, one of the common kits for this dually here is Curling Bomb Reef Slider. Trust me, I think this is a single-player exclusive kit, but it would be very funny if Ed Perry got Curse of Slider and we had our third new promising weapon ruined by Reef Slider. Please just give a jetpack in multiplayer. So before we wrap up, it's very clear that Side Order is trying to be a different genre and is most likely going to resemble a roguelike game. This is basically where you have a character that you level up and you go through multiple, well, in this case, floors, defeating enemies. Maybe they're somewhat randomly generated, maybe there's some planned things, and based on how you go through it, you can get different skill points for a different skill tree, basically the upgrades we've seen. It'll probably all still end with a boss fight and there'll be a story mode and such, but this explains a lot more of the replayability aspect. You could go through it multiple different times, changing how your character is developed and what kinds of stuff you use your upgrade points on. From my opinion as a Splatoon fan, I think it could be very interesting. As long as the levels you're going through are well designed and the perks that you get are more than just a little bit faster run speed, I think it could be a really nice change of pace. And I know from a lot of more casual fans that people want something different out of the Splatoon series, and this is a good way to keep the mechanics the same compared to something like table turf, and it's also a good way of distinguishing itself from Octo Expansion. I still care more about the story than anything else, but as long as that part is good as well, I'm totally open to this new direction. So yeah, that's everything we got. Like with last time, not really gonna try to piece everything together right now. I've kind of realized the more I've waited that I want to go into this as blind as possible, and I think this trailer did a good job of showcasing a lot of new stuff and giving us more of an idea of what it is without giving away a lot of the story and gameplay itself, which good, I want to be surprised by it. So I'm looking forward to Side Order. Surprise middle of the day trailer, Chill Season 2023 is here. And honestly, this one's looking pretty good. There's a lot to look forward to and some neat hidden details in this trailer that I think are super cool. So today, I'm gonna go through all of them as efficiently as possible. And if you enjoy this, please consider subscribing to help support me. I'll be making a lot of content, especially when this drops. But without further ado, let's get started. I'll go through the salmon run stuff briefly because there are just kind of two things to talk about. One, yes, this is Big Run on Barnacle. There's some changes as per usual, like the left side actually being somewhat of a route, which is cool. And it seems like this is going to be the debut of a new King Salmonid. Seems to be a superpowered version of Moz. Anyway, let's get to the new special. If you saw my second channel video with the chimney thumbnail and took a look at that, yes, this is the same special that got data mined a bit back. Basically, the way this works is you throw the projectile, being this bottle, it summons this giant wall, and any enemies who pass through it apparently take about 30 damage, get slowed down a little bit, and the main effect is this grayscale thing. That is not a trailer. You can see these gray bubbles above their head as well as it going away after they die. Which means for a little bit of time, you're basically playing in what looks like grayscale, which is really cool. From some data mined info we have, the wall seems to move at about the speed of a Quahog and Salmon Run, and the main question is if it blocks shots and has HP. Originally I figured it wouldn't since it is just a smokescreen, however by looking at it really closely in the trailer, it seems like it might actually be blocking shots, so maybe the wall is HP based as well, which obviously would be a huge buff for it if so. We also know that this special is on the Undercover Umbrella, and we'll talk more about the kits later, but I think it definitely fits this being a more supportive special if they're going for kind of Kunder vibes with the Splatoon 2 Ken's Undercover Umbrella playstyle, but with this one. I talked about this a lot on the second channel, so if you want more info you can take a look at that video, but I think it is going to be somewhat interesting. It could be a bit of a problem in some ways, smoke screens can be annoying and it's another HP special potentially. However, it is a great way to add necessary cover against more long-range weapons, which is a big problem this game's maps have. Anyway, onto the confirmed kits. And Perry getting Curling Bomb is probably a surprise to no one given how iconic this kit is, and the trailer shows it pretty clearly. I'd also say it's likely to get Jetpack, given that they repeated the Firefin kit, one of the other iconic Splatoon 2 kits, and Perry is arguably even more iconic. I think it's pretty likely. The coolest way to show off a sub ever though was done in this trailer. In this little 8-bit section of it, you can see the S-Blast user throw a burst bomb, accompanied with the same sound effect, and then when it cuts back to it later, they shoot for a little bit of a Grim combo. If you splice the two sections together without the bit in the middle, you can pretty much see it doing a burst bomb combo, as shown here. That's just so cool. So yeah, no more Curse of Sprinkler. I was so hyped to get Burst Bomb on S-Blast. I'll just let you see my reaction. Burst?
Well,
Oh no, it
does.
shows it in 8-bit. It shows it in
Yeah, it does, it
8-bit.
does.
S-Blast Burst Bomb. So yeah, it's pretty hype. Fork Strings also pointed out that its purple color scheme could be a reference to the Super Nintendo, obviously the thing the Super Scope was made for, which is awesome. Purple and red are my favorite colors, so I got no complaints here. I hope this thing gets an amazing special, but we have no way of knowing right now. In fact, pretty much all the other specials are hidden other than the undercover one we saw, though I will talk more about some theories later. The last sub-weapon we got confirmed is unfortunately not great. Near the start of the Bluefin trailer, on this back wall, you can see the Reflux throw a splash wall. Now this sub has some use cases with it, but I'm gonna be honest, this really is not what Reflux wanted. Yeah, this isn't really the greatest news, and it's gotta get a really good special to save it. Unfortunate. Now it's time for everyone's favorite game. Take a look at where the sub line is for what kind of sub it would be. Keep in mind that they could be wearing Subsaver, or this could change, or we could just have really unreliable camera views. These are a lot more speculative. Anyway, I'm gonna go through this quickly. Paintbrush has a 40% sub line. That is only one sub, which is Line Marker, which is not great for it. I guess technically the max damage is a 60 hit, so at least it has a combo that doesn't work if an opponent wears 1 sub of bomb defense. Custom Blaster has a 45% sub, and given that they just gave S-Blast Burst Bomb, this thing is probably getting Point Sensor. This one I'd say is more likely since it had Point Sensor in Splatoon 1, and you know how much Nintendo loves their reference kits. It's alright for it, not amazing by any means, but it's serviceable. Just depends on what special it gets. Squeezer, on the other hand, seems to have a 55% sub, which would be Auto Bomb. While not as strong as Splat Bomb for it, since Squeezer is a bit ink hungry, having a cheaper sub can be useful for it, and of course it helps against sharking. I think this is actually a pretty neat choice, and I gotta say, I really like Squeezer's color scheme. Gives me that Christmas vibe. Stamper is next, having a 60% sub, which could be one of 5 options: Ink Mine, Toxic Mist, Splash Wall, Sprinkler, and Fizzy Bomb. Fizzy would be the best for this, Sprinkler and Mist would probably be on the weaker half, Mine could be potentially interesting on Lockout with some setup combos, and Wall might be a bit weak with it being ink hungry right now, but I could see it having some use cases. Fizzy Bomb is honestly the big dream come true though. If it does happen, it would give it access to a more passive playstyle if it wants to be played with some different comps, and has a great amount of combos with the weapon. So if they want to keep the same combo feel of the vanilla kit, that would be my hope. Finally is the Sorella Undercover Umbrella, which has a 65% sub, which while it could technically be curling since it got buffed, is more than likely Torpedo returning from the Kensa Undercover kit, especially seeing how they want to make this more of a supportive kit clearly, which is of course great for the weapon. Though it is unfortunate we won't be able to see a Tacticooler Undercover Umbrella. Could have been cool. Maybe the 3rd kit will happen with like Burst or something. Now there's a few other things we can speculate with the kits. One, there is technically a chance we might be getting more than just these 8. The only reason I say that is the last 2 trailers showed all the kits with table turf cards, and since we only have 8 kits, 8 brand new low, there is a chance there could be a few more, which hopefully includes Chargers, given that they have 4 of them without a second kit so far, which is kind of crazy. Though it could just be seen as copium, honestly. There is potential for a second special to happen, given that last time we got a special, we did get a second new one, and there's no new main weapons in this update. I will say from data mined info, there is code for another one there, but it is a lot smaller than what we knew for Chimney. So maybe it got scrapped. Honestly, who knows? We'll have to see on Twitter in the next few days. Finally, there are 2 specials that are very likely to get on kits. First is Crab, which has actually never been added to a new kit in the DLC so far. And second is Booyah Bomb, which hasn't been added to a new weapon since Chill Season last year on Aerospray and Forge. So I would say it's pretty likely that some of these have those specials, as well as more than likely something else having the new smokescreen. Finally, let's talk about the stages, and I have some good news first. This first new stage might be one of the best ones we've seen. You can see spawn extensions on the right and left side to make it easy to retake distinct areas, and if you look in mid, you can see that pretty much all the walls there are paintable. This means that you have a super wide and open map, and it's really just these walls that are kind of corralling people closer together, but it looks like you can go around on either side. You don't have to go through mid all the time, there's a decent spawn area, and it looks really solid. It definitely does still seem to have a drop portion near the middle of your spawn area down here. Hopefully there's a defensive sponge in some other modes, but honestly, this looks really solid for a map. And it seems like the map design philosophy improvements from last season is continuing here. At least when it comes to the new maps. So let's talk about Bluefin as a returning stage. There is one positive I want to talk about, which are these elevators. These are basically a new mechanic. A lot of people think these just go up and down like normal, but no. They actually start moving pretty much as soon as you get on it and go down as soon as you get off. This is basically an entirely new stage gimmick, and I have really been wanting stages to have more distinct and unique identities for a long time. So it's cool to see something actually new being introduced here. I'm a fan. What I'm not a fan of is going up to the top of the elevator and seeing this random stack of blocks where there's supposed to be an important route connecting the snipes, being great for defenders to rotate between which side they want to watch and attackers on a flank. On top of that, in the middle of the map, you can see this right side here, which used to be another tunnel to drop, is pretty much entirely gone. This route was worse in Turf War than the ranked modes in S1, but it was still there as a drop, and here, I don't see anything. Bluefin is a map, though, that has a lot of changes in ranked mode, such as this middle bridge here on Tower and Rainmaker, so we really have to see when it comes out. But I'm gonna be honest here, there definitely seems to be some potential for negative changes. At the very least, this left side inkable wall is still here. They even made a little joke about it, so that's cool. The spawn area does seem different, in which good, it was probably the biggest problem with it back in Splatoon 1. And of course, we didn't really get a good overhead of it, so maybe there's some stuff we missed. As a whole though, Bluefin was a solid stage with a unique, fun identity, but it really needed some improvements for this game, and I don't think we saw that. The Fresh Season 2024 trailer is here, and not only that, we also have a bit of a breakdown on Side Order. So today, I'm gonna cover both of these trailers and break them down. If you want to see more content from me, we got Side Order in a week. Be sure to subscribe so you catch it right when it drops. Let's get started. Let's get two obvious ones out of the way before we play the subline game. First off, the Splatoon 2 win animations are back. We can see them in this wide shot with like 5 of them, so that's pretty cool. We basically already knew that these were likely to happen in the Splatoon 2 themed update, since the Splatoon 1 one had them, but it's cool to actually see them. It will be very disappointing if Splatana and Stringer don't get a new animation for this again, but that's probably what's gonna happen. The gear is also mostly Splatoon 2 gear, such as the Hot House hoodie being my personal favorite. Hopefully we also get the 8-ball shirt so I can finally complete my gear look. I expect we will get most, if not all, of the remaining Splatoon 2 gear in this update, and the rest of it probably in the next one, if not, so that's good to see. We've been missing a lot of Splatoon 2 gear. And in addition to that, it seems like there's some new gear functionality. The glasses will be able to be worn above your head, which is actually what I like for my Stamper build anyway, which is really cool, and what the Octo glasses obviously do. You can see it with the tinted shades here. And it seems like all shoes will have the ability to have socks on or off. I found both of these out from this image here. Check out the original post in the description. Anyway, I already know you guys want to see the sub weapon lines, so let's do this. We got a lot of sub weapons confirmed in this one. Both the Dreadringer and the 52 cal Deco have a 65% sub line, which means it's either Torpedo or Curling Bomb. Now, 52, I am willing to bet is going to be Curling, since you know they love to reference kits. We have no idea what the special could be, but I think that's going to be an okay sub for it.
It was later confirmed on a tweet by Nintendo that 52 got curling and scream.
I could see Dread also getting a Curling Bomb since it's a slow weapon and it wouldn't be horrible for it, but not a personal pick of mine. I'd say Torpedo is a bit more likely though. It's never been on a bucket ever, and it makes a lot of sense for this weapon. It would legitimately be one of the best subs it could get, so I'm really hopeful for it, honestly. Explosher has Wall and Splashdown, and some people were coping that the Splashdown jump radius got buffed, but no, that's just the explosions from the 2 people who died next to it. So, yeah, this kit is kind of dead on arrival unless if Splashdown gets, like, super buffed, which I don't think is gonna happen. Like, the special's not very good right now, and it doesn't really make sense on Expo because the Splashdown hits where you are, and this weapon is, like, in the backline. I could see it being a niche trade situation, but, I mean, come on, you guys know this weapon should get something better. Wall on it is actually kind of fine. It's nice against chargers, really. That's the main use case for it, but it's a pretty good use case. Could have been way more interesting if it had a special, but unfortunate. RIP Explo. 1 year and 6 months for that. Squiffer has a 55% sub, which is only one thing, Auto Bomb. I highly doubt it's subsafe or messing with it since it had Auto Bomb before and it worked quite well in Splatoon 2. This is probably another case of returning sub. I think Auto Bomb fits with it quite well though, so good pick as long as the special's good. Flingza is hard confirmed Suction Bomb. We can literally see it throw it and then use it to activate the fan and then flick afterward. Flingza is another very special dependent weapon since it paints so well, so really curious what we're going to see for it. I'm hoping it's a special that allows it to move forward a little bit though, personally. Obviously, some good special it could spam would be good, but it kind of already has that playstyle on the vanilla kit, so something a bit more active could be fun, especially since they buffed the horizontal flick last patch. Finally, is Leader. It has a beacon. Yeah, we can confirm it. This is not a teammate's beacon. You can see the subline, and the beacon has 2 dots on it, and then it breaks, which means it's a beacon weapon. Leader with beacon is like okay, probably a little bit better in this game since beacon is better in this game, but it really needs a good special. It's been stuck with Wavebreaker. Otherwise, mine is just much better. So far, that's 8 weapon kits, counting the 2 new ones we got. I'm willing to bet that's not all of them if we're trying to complete all the second kits by the next season, especially considering we didn't see the table turf cards, and there are 3 Splatlings without a second kit. So I'm willing to bet we're gonna see one of those on Twitter one day. Probably Edit, since all of the DLC kits kids have gotten their second kit within 6 months, except Pencil, which was 9. So that's what I think we're gonna see. I'd say at max, there could be 2 more weapons we didn't see in this trailer. I don't think we're gonna get any more than that. So what else is there to look at besides the sub-weapon lines? First off, where is the second stage? Yes, we have a Salmon Run stage. That's very cool. I think the Salmon Run stage looks very awesome. It looks pretty open. That's cool. But the returning multiplayer stage, we haven't seen it yet, which is a little bit suspicious. It could be something good. Everyone is hoping for Reef right now, but I'm a little bit worried that since there are 2 stage slots remaining in the map selection pick on like private battles, that there's only 2 stages left and we're getting 1 each season now. I hope I am wrong with that. So, you know, maybe we'll wake up to a new stage. The brand new stage we got, the airport one, looks pretty good. It is a little bit small, which means that it needs wide flanks. However, with the fans to add unique terrain, a nice spawn area, and what looks like a relatively open layout, I think it's going to be pretty cool. I also like the snipe area having grates next to some uninkable wall there. It adds a necessary downside to what otherwise would be a really strong sniper perch, so that's pretty interesting. Very high risk, high reward spot. It's cool to see the fans come back, and it seems like that they're continuing with having stages have a bit more of their own unique identity, which is definitely something we've needed. That's been a problem since Splatoon 2 stages came out. Also, we got a new Splatfest gimmick. It's really hard to tell what this is. My personal hope is that Pro Mode and Open are going to be split, and then Pro Mode will have no gimmick and just be for grinding, and Open Mode will have this brand new gimmick in it. It seems like they're just mini explosives you can pick up and throw, maybe like the clams in Clam Blitz, for instance, but just used as a weapon. Regardless, I think it's cool. Turf War has desperately needed something new. I don't think Tricolor has really worked very well, so it's cool to see another gimmick. I can't wait to try it when it comes out. Before we get to side order, 2 new main weapons. First off, it's the dually. This is basically like the S-Blast, but for dualies. Its standard fire is a long-range mode that seems to be probably pretty weak, but has a trade-off of the most range in the dually class. This looks like it's slightly more or equal to Squiffer, which is pretty crazy. The dodge rolls are pretty long. Seems similar to the early dually sculpture before it got its rolls, maybe a little bit more. And up close, the weapon has range of that of a short-range shooter, but fires way faster. It is a really cool gimmick. I think it's very interesting, and forcing you to have to fight while you're in a dodge roll in order to get the fast killing mode is a very interesting trade-off. It's also worth noting that this weapon is a 5-shot in both firing modes. I think some people are going to worry too much about it. If the accuracy and fire rate are good enough, it's not that big a deal. It was a problem on Nova because Nova has horrid accuracy and is a 5-shot. This weapon actually looks like it shoots straight, so it should be okay. This weapon does have a subline we can see, which is 60%, which means it's mist, mine, wall, sprinkler, or fizzy. I could see wall being okay with it, but probably not. Mine, sprinkler, and mist is probably not what it wants, and fizzy, as always, would be god. The new Brella seems to be based around having a fast shield regen and fast launch. I don't know if it's that it comes back instantly when it dies, or if it just comes back really fast. It's kind of hard to say. I think that we don't know as much about this weapon, and it really needs to have good damage because it seems to have a very flimsy shield that it doesn't get to keep for a while. So this weapon better actually be able to do damage when it doesn't have it, or it's gonna be a problem. The sub-weapon also looks like it's dart, so yeah, that's not good. Next up is side order. Now, listen, I bet that there's gonna be some people getting review copies soon, and I know there's some more content on it, but I'm only gonna talk about the overview trailer, and I didn't really watch anything else. I wanna go into this as blind as I can, so I'm really trying not to learn too much about it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I saw from that trailer because I don't think it spoils too much. Here's a few of my thoughts. I don't think this tower thing is the final boss. Maybe it's a fake out one, maybe it's just what you fight when you reach the top of the tower, but I do not think we would be seeing this much of it, nor would it be this generic if this was the actual final boss. It does look really cool, I just don't think it's going to be the end of the game. The difficulty of it looks really nice. If you lose, you do get some points that you can use to upgrade yourself for your next attempt, but you do literally completely reset if you lose. That's a really interesting challenge, and I know I'm going to try to beat it without having to do any resets. No idea if I actually will with how cool the format is, but I think that's really awesome. I was worried that they were going to water down the difficulty a little bit, but nope, they're going full roguelike. I like it. The progression chips we get to see more of, I really like stuff like the dualies having explosive dodge rolls. The damage from that is really cool, and there need to be more upgrades that expand and make weapons feel really broken, and less stuff like slightly increased ink consumption. That's my hopes for it personally, and I think if the upgrades are good, it will add a lot of replayability. Finally is the weapon skins. It looks like you're actually going to be able to get a skin for like probably most, if not all, of the weapons in the game, which is cool. We didn't get the Octo weapons last time Octo expansion happened, but at the end of the trailer, we can see it confirmed here. My only real concerns for this are the skins just attached to the vanilla kits, or can you put them on any, since there's so many of them? I guess we'll have to see. It's cool to see they're actually doing the skins though, since Octo expansion had that as a big missed opportunity. Octobrella still looked amazing. We could have had it as the second kit, but oh well. I think side order so far looks pretty good. This overview definitely gave me a bit more hope that they're sticking with the concept and really fully fleshed it out, and it's cool to see Pearl in person. I'm just hoping there's a bit more to the story. It seems like we haven't seen that much of it just yet, so if it is a good story, and if the roguelike is executed well, I think it's going to be fantastic. I am really excited to play it. Now, what do I think for the season as a whole? The Splatfest gimmick is cool, the new weapons have interesting concepts, and I think the stage is good, but a lack of returning stage and weapons that are very dependent on strong kits when the only one we've seen is Splashdown Explo is not a good sign. This might be a case where the weapons really don't work, but all of the new stuff we get does, but I'm hoping that's not the case. Some strong kits could make it a really good season. At least we have side order to fall back on if it does end up kind of mediocre. We'll see when it comes out though. Well guys, we have what might potentially be the final season of Splatoon 3, and today I'm gonna break it down. We actually know almost every single sub and special on these weapons right now, so we got a lot to talk about, and at the end, I'll be giving my theory on if I think this is the final season or not. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoy, and let's get into it. So first off, we actually see 8 different specials, so we can talk about which weapon has which special. And let's get my favorite one out of the way. CRB is real. We know the Kraken on the green team is an Octo Kraken, meaning it could only be the Hydra or the Range Blaster, and we see the Hydra throw a screen earlier, as well as can see a Range Blaster shot come out of the Kraken in the fast section of the trailer. And that's not all, we actually know it as Splat Bomb as well, because we can see the Octolink's ponytail peeking out at the very top of it. This is Splatoon 1 CRB. It is back. Now, in zones only, this isn't even that much better than the vanilla kit, but I don't care. This is going to be significantly more fun, and I honestly am just still in complete disbelief that this kit even happened. I am so excited to see it. Speaking of Hydra, we see it with screen twice, and it is just pretty obvious from the angle that that's what it's from. I see some people disappointed by this, but honestly, I think it's a pretty solid screen weapon. It takes a while to charge up, something that blocks its line of sight so things don't just shoot it ahead of time seems like a good idea. I'd imagine it's a bit more difficult to set up, but it looks like it has some basic synergy. The sub-weapon line looks to be at just about 60%, meaning it is one of these 5 sub-weapons. I'll be referring to this chart by Kiver throughout pretty much all of these, because otherwise it's going to get a bit repetitive. Next up, the Dowser dualies we can clearly see throwing Tri-Strike. The hint that this is Dowser's in the sped-up section is just how much range it has, on top of knowing the edit is on the top right corner. The sub-weapon line on Dowser's is really hard to see, but it looks like it's about 40 to 45% we can see it near the start of the trailer, which means it could be line marker, burst bomb, or point sensor. Dart really doesn't have synergy on this thing, considering the 2 shots on this weapon only do 52 damage. It wouldn't even combo with it, so I'm just really hoping it's something solid, because I think Tri-Strike on it is a pretty good option special-wise. Speaking of edit, edit is a crab weapon. Wait, is that a crab? There's a crab! There's a crab! There's a crab! There is a f***ing crab! Crab spotted! Holy shit! It's really cool to see another one of these. It is of course attached to a weapon with cooler, so it'll still probably be its less common kit, but now Edit has a really good option if you already have another cooler in your team comps, and it is a great main weapon. The sub-weapon line here is again another 60%, so all the same possibilities as Hydra. We'll have to see what it can get, but it is really exciting to see another crab. We can see the triple splashdown is actually from the Recycle Brella. It's a little bit hard to tell if it's it or the bow, but we later see the bow shooting while the triple splashdown goes off, which basically gets us to confirm that it is in fact Recycle with the splashdown. And honestly, I think this is a good combination. Recycle just does a lot of damage. You would have a very easy time comboing with it. It's very aggressive and it needs to play to get kills because it has no shield. So having a special that really helps you secure your kills or get kill streaks is going to be pretty nice for it. The sub-weapon though kind of kills any potential this has because it's Toxic Mist. I mean, it's better than Dart, but by the smallest margin possible. The lack of damage and pain is just going to make it harder to get the splashdowns that is positive for the kit, and not not really have much synergy. I really just don't see why this was picked to have a Mist, other than Mist was a beta Sorella Brella kit in Splatoon 2 before Autobomb got on it, which I hope is not the hidden reason. This weapon really needs to be an exceptionally good Slayer that either has tools to give it even more damage or some form of protection with how weak the shield is, and Mist just doesn't do either of these to me. I would rather just shoot them twice than throw it 9 times out of 10, especially when I'm building a splashdown. The new Splatana has a bubble. I will talk about it more when we get to its kit. We can see it set up bubble multiple times. It's pretty obvious. I don't think it's the worst candidate for bubble. It can pretty reliably guard the inside of it, and it can poke outside of the bubble, so it's probably one of the better options. Bubble's kind of okay right now. And if you look carefully at it, you can actually see it throw a suction bomb during the sped up section. So yeah, it is suction bubble. That is a decent kit, and if the weapon ends up being pretty good, I think we could see it, but we'll get to that later. The Bamboo has one of the best kits of this entire season though, and I'm so happy for it. We can see it just barely throwing Fizzy Bomb as the paint trail gives it away when it's fighting the crab, and it has Super Chump. Bamboo is mostly a zones thing, and Chump is a very solid zone special that works very well with Bamboo, and Fizzy on it is ridiculous. We know that from Splatoon 2. This is a kit with a lot of creativity. It looks incredibly fun and incredibly strong, and it takes over a whale kit, so less whale is always good for me. I am really excited to see what Bamboo players can do with this kit. It looks so fun. That was a lot of kits. Sorry guys, they really did show a lot this time, so that's going to be pretty cool. As always, I'll be breaking down the kits in more detail when we get them fully confirmed on the second channel, so that will be covered there. Check it out if you want more in-depth analysis on all of them. For now though, let's move on to the new main weapons. So the Stringer, the one we got data mined as Stringer Explosion, is 5 explosions. They seem to be very similar in size, and so I would guess power to the Tri-Stringer, but maybe doing a little bit more damage. It seems like they could be 3-shotting in this clip where they're blowing up the other 2 enemies, so it could be doing 35 damage instead of 30, which I think would be very strong, and in this case makes me think this is kind of like an Explosher type deal, because the weapon doesn't actually have that much range compared to Tri-Stringer, and the bullets are forced to be spread out, which means if you're charging past a level 1 charge, you are actually not one-shotting, so you're playing much more for AoE and the increased paint those explosions output. So yeah, this is a weird explo. You do still have access to a one-shot if they run up close to you with your partial, which is very fast, kind of like how Reflux kills, so that's really interesting. I think this is a cool playstyle, and the weapon looks like it could be pretty solid, possibly the best out of all the bows. As for the kits for this bow, we actually know both of them, as they were both posted to Twitter today, and that's right, that means these 2 new main weapons are getting their second kits immediately. I'll talk about that more in the conclusion, but for now, the kits we have is the Autobomb and Ultra Stamp, which is not great. Autobomb on it seems pretty cool. It can do some damage and locate people, which is nice for a weapon that can hit so easily over objects, given its set of 5 explosions, but Ultra Stamp for it is just a bit tricky. This feels like the same idea they had with Custom Explo, with giving it a way to fight up close, but Ultra Stamp is nowhere near the spot Triple Splashdown is in, so I'm a bit worried this won't actually work. The second kit though is Point Sensor and Wave Breaker, and man, I hate that I'm so disappointed about this kit, because in theory, it should make a lot of sense. And I just kind of realized this is how I feel about Wave Breaker in general. Like, Wave is on 8 weapons, and 7 out of 8 of them make perfect sense for it, but Wave Breaker is just so undertuned right now. It's such an amazing special concept that's held back by only getting 1 buff in like 2 years, which is really sad, honestly. Again here, the sub weapon is at least pretty nice. Sensor is good considering you'll have an easy time hitting over corners. This is really gonna depend on how insane the main weapon actually is, and until we get the damage numbers for those explosions, I don't think we're gonna know that for now. The new Splatana, on the other hand, seems to have the gimmick of a very far charge slash that is also always a horizontal. This has a downside and an upside. The upside is that the hitbox for this is probably way more forgiving than Stamper or Splatana Wiper, meaning dash slashing people is probably going to be the easiest on this Splatana, given that you also have more range. However, the downside is you should not be able to ledge camp with it like you can the other Splatanas, because again, there is no vertical to this charge slash. Outside of that, it's really hard to tell. It seems to be kind of in that middle range value, and the horizontals don't seem too different. The charge time seems a little bit longer than the other Splatanas, but not too bad. It's really hard to see exactly where this weapon is. It's going to depend on the charge slashes. I'm also curious if the charge slash will allow you to kind of traverse the stage in the air, or if it's going to have some kind of limitation, because out of bounds stuff like this is typically not allowed. So maybe if you get in the air, it kills your momentum. I don't know. On to the stages, and yes, stages, because Scorch Gorge is technically slightly different. There's some boxes below it and on the grates. Is this a tiny change coming with the season or a full-on map rework? I have no idea. I am hoping that is not the entirety of the map rework, and I kind of doubt it is. But it's cool to see that Scorch actually does have some changes. The new map is an asymmetrical stage, which everyone kind of expected. It has some moving platforms, which is awesome for the gimmick, and for the most part, I think it looks pretty solid. The middle area looks fun to fight in, and so does the area by your base. The only real part I can critique is it seems the only way to get in from mid to the enemy base is either the top part by this moving platform, or this ramp at the very bottom, which again, very similar to Skipper in terms of where the approach options are. If those end up being easier to traverse than it looks, I think it's going to be a really solid stage, and asymmetrical stages are always just kind of fun. I like the gimmick of the moving platforms, and the bottom of the map having this unique kind of tunnel and bridge area just looks really fun to fight on. Reminds me a bit of Reefer Rum. Two small little bonus extra details. The coloring on the Bambrella, as some people like to call it, is actually the same color as the Bamboo Mach 3. I just found that interesting, and if we get third kits, Bamboo might look a bit different. Who knows? And secondly, it seems like this train station actually does take place near the crater, where we started with the game. I could see this as a bit of a hint to being near the end of the game, honestly, because it seems like a cool way to wrap it up to have the last stage take place in the starting area. Maybe they expanded the train station that was here originally 2 years ago. That'd be a cool way to show how much things have changed. Outside of that, we got some news for Big Run. It looks like multiple King Salmonids will be a thing. I don't know if they're going to have their own boss meter or just share one, but I have wanted that. It sounds really cool. This Big Run is actually called a Big Run, just to really put the emphasis on it. The jelly at the end confused me, but it looks like they have stuff from all 3 idol groups, so I think the theory that the final Splatfest is going to be Squid Sisters versus Off the Hook versus Deep Cut could actually be real. We might see that. So the idea of a content extension has never really been more bleak. We have all the second kits in the game, and the trailer seems to be wrapping things up. The only real glimmer of hope is those data mined extra 2 main weapons we got a bit back. We really don't know what those are though. They could have been scrapped if the devs thought that it's not worth doing more content for the game, or it could be planned for something later, or it could be planned for some kind of Splatoon 3 Deluxe, or giving Splatoon 3 content a year from now when people can buy it for the Switch 2. We really don't know, and personally for me, it's really hard to say. I think we're currently in the doom and gloom period where everyone thinks it's totally over, but I just have to remind everyone that third kits always drop out of literal nowhere whenever they happen. It could be a thing, and it could not. I also don't want to give people any false hope though, and I'm not really seeing any signs that they need to do third kits either. I think that if there is going to be more content though, it might step away from the seasonal system, and the only real reason I think we're bound to get something else in a future update is because I think they need to add the functionality for Splatfest maps and probably Big Run maps in private battles. So we'll probably see something in the future, but that could be an update as small as, hey, in this patch we also added the ability to pick things in private battles, to okay, here's some third kits and you can pick this in PBs. We're just gonna have to see. What do you guys think is gonna happen? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.